Good morning, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Coffee Break with Card, La Hora del Cafecito's new sister show. Coffee Break with Card is a program dedicated to all those in our community who are living with autism, to their family members, and to all those who support them. My name is Lourdes Quiñones, and I want to welcome you to our show. Come on in, join us at the table. Sign in the comment section and let us know if you're drinking a cup of coffee with us. We'd love to say hello to you. Okay. In today's program, we have the pleasure of interviewing Joseph Barton, the founder of Dad's Only support group called Autism Dads of Greater Orlando, and now also of Greater Tampa and St. Pete area. So join us. We have a lot to talk about. And welcome to the show, Joseph.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. So let's start off by introducing to you to our coffee break hostesses for today. As I mentioned before, my name is Lourdes Quiñones. I am a card consultant assigned to the primary age group through elementary ages. Professionally, I am a pediatric physical therapist as well as a special education teacher. I am joined today by my colleagues, Maggie Aldana. Buenos dias, Maggie.
Buenos dias. Good morning.
Ima Camposano. Buenos dias, Ima.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone.
Our colleagues, Jasmine Castellano and Olivia McDonald, couldn't join us today, so we send them a love and say thank you for everything you do. We'll see you next week, okay? Anyway, Maggie Aldana is an excellent special education teacher, is the chair of CARD's Constituency Board, and is the mother of three, two of whom are diagnosed with autism. Welcome, Maggie. Ima Camposano is completing her master's in social work and has chosen to do her internship here at CARD, as she is committed to serving those with autism who are in our area and to also serving their families. So Ima is a mother of two and has a physical disability, so she brings an important perspective to our program. Welcome, Ima.
Thank you.
Well, before we get started, I would like to review the rules by which we want to adhere through this programming. Remember that we must keep an open mind and a positive attitude and use respectful language. This will ensure that we have a safe environment for us all. But before we get started, I would like to greet our audience members. So if you're here and you want to sign in, let us know that you are with us. I would love to say hello at any point. Go ahead and leave us your comments. Say good morning. Let us know if you are drinking a cup of coffee with us. Okay. All right. So let's move on. And as I mentioned earlier in today's program, we have the pleasure of interviewing Joseph Barton, the founder of a Dad's Only support group called Autism Dads of Greater Orlando and now of Greater Tampa and St. Pete area. So join us. We have a lot to talk about. Let's get started. So Joseph, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Thank you. My name is Joseph Barton. During my working hours, I am a implementation project manager for a company called SAP. In my off time, what I've found that I've grown to like to do is do a lot of work in the autism community. My autism work is voluntary, provides me no income other than happiness and helping other families avoid pitfalls and mistakes that we made along the way. Because I've been on this road now for, coincidentally, it was 16 years ago today that my son was diagnosed. So This is kind of fitting to be doing this today.
Oh, awesome. So we'd like to say hello to Jasmine. Hey, Jasmine. Like I said, she can't join us today, but she is always monitoring what we're doing. So thank you there. All righty, moving on. You're muted, Maggie.
Can you share part of your experience raising your son with autism?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start off by first saying all credit for the early diagnosis, which was at 19 months. It was relatively young. Goes to my wife and the team of doctors that she engaged. As I've got three kids, I've got a stepson who's 25 that I've raised since age 2. I've got a daughter who's 22, and then Mason is our youngest child. So he was my second child. He's the first boy that I had raised since infancy. I did not notice the missed milestones the same way that my wife did. I was still leaning on, advice my mother told me about boys developing differently than girls, and I kind of held on to that and didn't I guess, approach it the same way my wife did. Thank God she did what she was supposed to do, because it obviously taught me a lot. We did experience a lot of the typical red flags: lack of speech, poor eye contact, unresponsive to his name being called, inappropriate or little play with peers of his age. So with all that information, we start to seek the opinions of various medical professionals, starting first with an ENT. I'd forgotten about this the other day. We had taken him to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor because we thought his hearing was the cause of him not responding to his name. Ruled out that any hearing problems. So we met with the opinions of various other medical professionals, like I said, pediatrician, neurologist, developmental pediatricians. This eventually led us to a diagnosis of PDD-NOS, which I'm sure a lot of people listening could experience as well. And then a couple months later after that was autism. This was back before the terminologies of levels 1, 2, and 3 were assigned. And back then, 16 years ago, we were using terms like high, medium, or low functioning. Those were still being widely used. Looking back now, of course, hindsight is crystal clear 2020. My wife and I both know that our son was very different the second he was delivered. He was 4 weeks premature because my wife is 4'11" and 105 pounds soaking wet, and she looked like she was having triplets. Even a month early, he was 8.5 pounds, which is, they knew he would be over 10 pounds if we let him go full term. But the delivery via C-section was rather chaotic. When he was born, he was out of sorts. His APGAR test was extremely low. He had trouble breathing. So that caused some immediate concern there, but it seemed after he stabilized, everything was okay. We went back home a few days later, just like any new family typically would.
Wow, thank you for sharing all that with us. Can you talk a little bit about how you felt during that time?
It's a great question. I'm 52 now, so I was 34 back then when this happened, when he was born. So in the beginning, it was very odd feeling, and at that time, like most men, I wasn't super comfortable with emotions, and I was very confused at the constant thoughts running through my head regards to where I should place blame, what his childhood would look like for him. Would he have friends at school? Would he get through school? What does independent living look like? And as an adult, if he can achieve that? And worst of all, every parent thinks about this: what happens after I'm dead?
Yeah.
Pretty morbid to think about, but it's unfortunately, like I tell all dads that are just getting a diagnosis, you need to address this and plan for it. Needless to say, that kept me up nights and still does on occasion, despite all the great progress he's made in 16 plus years since his diagnosis. I do remember just being absolutely mentally and physically exhausted all the time. Mentally, of course, because it's very stressful. Like I said, I'm sure everyone that is listening can relate to that. Your mind wanders when you're trying to drift off to sleep and you start thinking about things. If it's not work, it's definitely about your kids. Physically, I was exhausted because Mason didn't sleep through the night until he was 6 years old. From birth to 6, I can literally count on one hand, and probably could count 3 times in which he actually slept more than 6 continuous hours. Thank God everything fixed itself. He sleeps like a typical teenager now, which is great. Doesn't help me much because now I have insomnia, so I can't sleep. But like I said, eventually that fixed itself. And but during those years, my wife and I were just professional zombies, trying to piece together 2-3 hours of sleep at a time. I would try to let her sleep as much as possible because I can function on a couple hours sleep. She needs her sleep. So I would get up majority of the time just to help out. With regards to marriage, like all pressures on marriage, autism certainly has its part. I know one of the first things I heard was, 16 years ago, 80% of marriages with a child with autism end in divorce. So of course I believe that the first couple of years, but then I kind of don't really put much stock into that theory. I just never felt it's an accurate representation of the reality of married life. Much like a house, if a marriage lacks a strong foundation and you apply any pressure, small cracks turn into big cracks. We all know marriage is very hard work. It's full of sacrifice, compromise, and sometimes missed hopes and dreams. And as I've told all my children, since they're all adults now, for most people, marriage will be the hardest thing you will ever do in life. So, I always stress to my kids, when you're in a relationship that you're serious about, put all your effort into it, because you don't want those small cracks, because you don't know what's going to come down the line. I certainly didn't anticipate having autism. And, while I love my wife more than anyone on the planet, and she loves me after 20 plus years married, we're both okay knowing that we drive each other absolutely insane on occasion. We just talk it out.
And that is so important. You said several things that, really clicked for me. For example, when you were talking about that sense that you knew something was afoot, right? Something was off. During the pregnancy, Maggie has shared her own experience knowing when her son, her youngest son, was born, that there was something off, right, Maggie?
Yes, it was in. It goes back to what he mentioned, hindsight is 2020. When you're like looking back, you're kind of like, oh, that's what that was. He wasn't talking, but you follow that instinct and you keep asking questions and kind of like you keep it in the back of your mind. And then when he wasn't diagnosed until he was 4, but then looking back, it kind of like connected all those what seemed random dots at the time. It all started to make sense, and it made all the difference too.
Yeah. And so that was the one thing that you said that kind of reminded me of Maggie's story. And then the other thing that you mentioned about was the effort and the foundation of the marriage. Marriage, like you said, it is so hard. It's hard enough to just, for everyday people who do not have added to their equation of marriage the issue of a disability, in this case, autism. And then on top of that, that's hard enough just maintaining that.
Yeah.
To be married for as long as you have, 20 plus years. And that's hard enough. Like you said, it takes everyday stuff. But then when you add the strenuous circumstances of having someone with a disability in the home, and how do we manage schedules, how do we manage therapies, how do we manage all this stuff, if you don't have a strong bond and ways to look at it from the perspective of problem solving, right? And so that's going to add to the issue. Anyway, so the next thing I want to ask you is, can you describe any supports that you have, that you received at that period, or you wish you had received, that you believe had a positive impact, or could have had a positive impact in your role as a father of a son with autism?
Absolutely. Great question. I will say, back when he was diagnosed, I lived in Dallas, Texas. So I've only lived in Orlando, Florida for the past 7 years. We did not have anything like CARD in Texas. There isn't even today. So I applaud everything you guys do, because I fight for you guys as much as I can. And I obviously encourage others in groups, various support groups around this area to do the same. I was rather fortunate not long after his diagnosis that I found myself quite by accident being lovingly forced to attend a going away dinner for a dear friend who was moving out of state. My wife and I all met at an informational meeting with Cure Autism Now, before it was Autism Speaks, to get involved in their fundraising efforts, because we were kind of new. We were trying to learn the ropes. We kind of partnered ourselves with them because we liked their message, even though now it's a little bit cloudy. This friend of ours, her son had been recently diagnosed at the same time. Her son's the same age as our son. At that dinner of 25 plus women, I was the only guy until another dad that was also lovingly forced to go showed up. Obviously, he and I sat next to each other. We hit it off, and resulted in a great friendship. We got together with 4 other dads that we casually knew in the area, and we'd get together the first Saturday of every month at a local Starbucks, and we'd catch up. We'd compare notes, share info on successes and failures and whatnot. And we did that for a good few years until I left to relocate to Florida due to my wife's job offer with Disney. And for me, just having that group of men that got it was very, very therapeutic, and for them as well. In fact, since my parents and my siblings all live in Dallas, so I go back a couple times a year. As soon as I've arranged when I know I'm going, this group of guys they're the first people I text, sometimes even before I text my family, just so I can get together with them and catch up again on successes and failures, because we've all been a part of each other's lives and watching our children grow from 2-3 years old up until young adults right now. So just having that group of men that got it, like I said, was very therapeutic. I wanted to clone that on a larger scale when we moved here, because I failed to mention this before, is when we moved here, I was working remotely 100% of the time. I had no family or friends in the office, so my wife would get home from a very stressful job in the office, and I'm like, I've got to get out of the house. This is killing me. I'm a little bit too social to be work from home 100% of the time, so I got to know the mailman really well, and all Amazon deliveries and everything else. So I knew about their kids and all that stuff because I would always stop and chat. But like I said, I wanted to do something for the autism community since we had a really tight-knit community back in Dallas. And when I got here, I didn't find anything for dads. So I had time to put it together in my evening hours, and it got me out of the house, which was great for my mental health. It gave me an escape to get out of the house.
And that is so important for you to say, you know, that looking for that bonding. And funny how things just happen, right? What you seek is seeking you, right? So yeah. So having that opportunity because your mind and your heart was open to seeking that connection, that human connection, that, you know, and all of us can relate to you that, you know, after this year of COVID, having been, you know, with that cabin fever of not being able to get out and socialize and resume normal life, so to speak, in this COVID environment. But so thank you for sharing that part of your journey, because and for coming in here and being so open to create that. So I know that that is something that we wanted to bring to dads out there and talk about, because it's so important.
Yes, I'm interested in learning more about your dad's autism. Can you tell us about how it got started?
The autism
support group.
The support group, yeah. We, as I mentioned, we're the Autism Dads of Greater Orlando here in the Orlando area. I also created the Autism Dads of Greater Tampa St. Pete. I created it, and I didn't go to this yet because it's, like I said, there's basically 99.99% of the online support groups out there are run by moms, which is great. They do a great job. There just isn't much of a landscape for dads to talk to other dads. And I find that men want to talk to other men about this stuff. So I simply just created an avenue for them to do so. While Facebook is our main source of communication and sharing of information, we do get together once a month, typically for a drink or a meal, cigar, somewhere around town. I do move the location monthly to spread the wealth. I don't expect everybody to drive to my backyard. And I give everybody the chance to attend. And at the end of the day, the opportunity to sit down with another dad that understands everything financial, marital, sibling stress that autism can bring to a family is comforting. I know sometimes dads might get uncomfortable with the idea of a support group, and I struggle to call it a support group. But at the end of the day, it is. We just don't sit in a circle and share feelings. It's just a support group with a very low-key, laid-back environment that has no agenda that other dads seem to enjoy. And it's not just about autism. When we do gather together, we talk a ton about non-autism related topics. We talk about how great the Dallas Cowboys are and how horrible the New England Patriots are. And we'll talk about sports. We talk about politics, and I make sure that that's handled politely and respectfully, because I know that can be a topic that sometimes just spins out of control. We can easily be found on Facebook. I only have a couple of rules to members that join the group. The account must be a dad's account. I don't allow any shared husband-wife accounts, and I don't allow any wife's accounts that the dad uses. Doing this just makes it a space where men know they're talking to other men, and it seems to be really the secret to our success. So, of course, I've talked about how, I support those guys that are on Facebook. Obviously, not every dad is on Facebook. So for those dads that are not on Facebook, they can email me, and I add them to our distribution list so that they at least have the opportunity to know when we're getting together in person to come out and meet us.
And we'll be sharing that information at the end of this show, and how to get a hold of you, and the link to your Facebook page and so on.
Joseph, I really appreciate you being here with us and sharing your perspective as a dad. That's not something that we get too much of. So I really want to thank you for everything you shared today. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
I've got 2 items. Our next meeting in Orlando is currently scheduled for Saturday, December 4th, 2021 at 5 p.m. at Ellipsis Brewery. It's in the Orlando Lake Nona area. And I actually just scheduled the next meeting for our Tampa St. Pete group, which will be December 11th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. at Bubba's 33 in Wesley Chapel, Florida. So that's in the Tampa St. Pete area. And usually we get together for about 3 hours.
Awesome. So that's a night out for dads and to, for dads, by dads, just be guys. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Thank you.
Right now, if you are watching and you want to leave a message, or whether you're watching this while we're live, or if you're watching it afterwards, after we get off the air, go ahead and leave us some comments, and we'll be sure to reply to your comments and share them with Joseph if we need to, if there's a question for him or something. We're also going to be sharing his information, his email information like he just shared. But I also wanted to acknowledge those who are watching us, who've been with us. And so we have good morning to Jasmine. Hi, Jasmine. Thank you so much for being here. Then we also have Nicole Perez. We just interviewed her husband on the Spanish show this morning. And they have a wonderful, they're from the Orlando area themselves, and they have a support group on Facebook as well. And we also have Chris, who apparently had some problem with the video, my video probably. So thank you for watching and being with us, Chris. Good morning. And then also Jasmine mentions, thank you, Joseph, for sharing your experience, and most importantly, for having the courage to talk about your feelings. We know that could be a sticky little thing for some men. And also she says that listening to you describing your son's development prior to the diagnosis reminded her of her pregnancy and the development of her daughter with autism. Both very familiar. Thank you for sharing, Jasmine.
Thank you.
And then we have Leslie Isbel Gervais. I hope I didn't butcher that thing. Can you share information of the Autism Dad Support Group? Yes, I'm about to put it on the chat, so stick around for that. And then one more thing, thank you for sharing your experiences, what Nicole says. And her group is Mi Rayito Azul. It's a Spanish show. And Joseph just let us know that he's fully bilingual. So
a little bit rusty. I have to get past thinking in English and speaking in Spanish. If I can think in Spanish, I'm good. It just takes me a little bit to get there.
Right. Okay. So let me just go ahead and copy and paste. You were also going to tell us about something a link that you're sharing about your wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the link, I did send it to you guys, so you're you're more than welcome to share it. It was Disney, my wife works in the Disney corporate office, as I think I mentioned. They do an initiative internally for employees. It's kind of called a behind the name tag, to where they get to know employees in the office, and that employee gets, recorded for a little 5-minute video, and they could speak about whatever is important to them. So my wife got approached around this time last year and was asked to be a part of this, and she elected to bring Mason in and talk about autism. And it's just a beautifully done video, and my son gets to talk a little bit and talk about some great things that he's experienced through Disney, through some summer camps that he has done in the past few years before he aged out of them. But yeah, you're welcome to take a look at it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. And I am, as you're talking, I'm posting your contact information. I am posting under my name the Autism Dads of Greater Tampa, as well as the Autism Dads of Orlando area. And then shortly I'll be sharing something else. But I also wanted to say and acknowledge a dear person to us. Where are you? I thought so. Dr. Karen Berkman. She is watching, so thank you so much. Dr. B, she used to be our executive director. She's retired, so thank you for being with us. And I also wanted to let people know that we will be sharing all this information and putting you in contact with Joseph if you need to. I'm adding the link to, hold on a second, I'm managing a lot of things. I am multitasking today. Let me tell you what, I miss Jasmine and Olivia. They usually take care of this, but I'm glad they're taking the day off. Much needed rest. Here is the link to the video that you just mentioned. about your wife at work and your son. And then we'll be sharing. So thank you. Before we move on, I just wanted to share again that we wanted to thank you, Joseph, for agreeing to come on board with us and be on the show and to share this information. And above all, bring hope to our audience members and our dads who are there, because a couple of the things that you mentioned that I really honed in was, for example, it sounds like, and this is so important for us to share in this show with parents who may be just starting their journey, their autism journey. And that hope about the fact that the early years are probably the hardest, right?
Yeah, they are.
Would you say that?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, right? So getting through those early years and getting through, when you're in the midst of it, it sort of seems like this is not going to have an ending. This is how it's going. You can't see ahead. You can't,
right.
Very often you're blinded and you're thinking, and you might lose hope. So I always try to give hope to the families and say, this is a transitional place. And you got to play your cards right? You have to do your part. You have to get the services in place. You got to do the consistent strategies that you're being taught and that are working for your family member with autism, because some strategies work and some don't. Not that they don't work in general, but for your particular case, your particular person with autism, whether it's your child, your partner, whoever, not all strategies are going to work because we're all different, just like the fingerprints in our hands, right? So I like that you said that. You said that your son is a typical teenager now, sleeps all day.
Yeah. One thing I'll add to that, and this is something because I get texted or called or emailed or something or Facebook messaged almost every week by somebody that's just diagnosed, that's here locally, by somebody that might be moving to the area. But what I always try to tell newly diagnosed families, especially the parents, I cut to the chase on things. I just say it pretty bluntly. It's like, be very comfortable with the fact you're going to make the wrong decision when it comes to treatment or therapy, because you're going to try something and you're only making that decision based on all the facts that you have at that time, but those facts may change in your child's development. So be okay with making a wrong decision. Once you realize you've made the wrong decision, give yourself 5 minutes to wallow in your guilt, dust your boots off and move on, because all you're doing is wasting time at that point. So that's like the number one piece of advice I give, because you're going to try a lot of therapies. We've tried a lot of therapies over the course of, the early years of Mason's diagnosis. We don't do any now because he's fantastically progressed. But yeah, that's good that you said that, because I think a lot of parents lose hope when they realize they've made a bad decision on something.
Exactly. And so you don't know. This is new to us. I mean, if child rearing is difficult as it is, no child comes in with a manual of instructions under their arm. And if that is for just typical development, imagine how much different it can be for other disabilities, to include autism. So cut yourself a break, like you said, and just, dust yourself off and start all over again, right? Anyway, I'm a wannabe singer, so I just got
much better than me. My son Mason has no filter. If I sing in the car, he'll say, "Dad, please stop." No filter.
Wonderful. So thank you again. Thank you, Joseph, for being here.
Most welcome. Thank you.
We're almost at the end of this show, and I hope that those of you who are watching this after we go off the air, please leave us comments, questions. We'll be sure to share them with Joseph. But also I wanted to let you know that next week, in the next episode of Coffee Break with Card, next week, we're going to be interviewing two local self-advocates who are part of a team of creatives who founded a wonderful self-advocacy group called the Disablest Network. This network of self-advocates was created by disabled people for disabled people, as their motto indicates. So be sure to join us next week and be here so that you can hear people talk about it. And again, maybe find another another avenue for that might work for you if you're a person with disability, that that you can share experiences with like-minded people. Like in this case, is a group of dads, and they're like-minded dads who share their experiences as dads of individuals with autism, whether they're boys or girls, children or adults. So thank you again. But before we go, I want to ask you a little favor. I posted already a survey in the comment section. This is the way that we can justify the time that it takes us to create this type of programming. So I want to make sure that, you know, if you've done it before, it's okay. We need to do it every time we go in the air. So we thank you from the bottom of our heart for taking the time. It takes less than a minute. Just let us know how we're doing so we can continue to bring this type of programming. Okay. So this brings us to the end of the program. And again, thank you so much to Joseph. We really appreciate it. We hope to bring you back in the future.
Always happy to do it.
Thank you. Awesome. So, alrighty. So, at this time, we'd like to remind you to please give us a like. Don't forget to give us a like. Share this particular episode with those in your circle of friends or family members that you know could benefit from this programming. And also be sure to save every Friday around 10:45-ish. We come off another show, so that's why we say the ish part of it. And so just join us here so we can share our cup of coffee with you as we spill the beans on important topics related to autism. So until then, we want to wish you good vibes
and hot coffee.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. One moment, because now I need to sign off of here. Here we go.